We chant the four great Bodhisattva vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to help them all. Delusions are countless. We vow to see through them all. Opportunities to awaken are infinite. We vow to embrace them all. The Buddha way is endless. We vow to embody it. Okay, very good. We'll start with our 15 minutes of seated meditation. Chant the Gatha on opening the sutras. This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the true mind of all Buddhas. So tonight, we are happy to welcome back our intrepid traveler, coming to us from a fairly nice looking kitchen, it would assume. Yeah, nice kitchen in Vietnam. So please, Minh Maitri, it is yours.
Thank you, Venerable Unsan. I appreciate it. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of the Dharma again. I am happy to meet with you guys again. And I'm sorry I've been absent for the past month or so. When we first came to Vietnam, I had rented an apartment on a different side of Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. And we had a place where, you know, I could set up and I had reliable internet. And then we lived out of small hotels for about a month. And while my wife was purchasing an apartment over here, an investment property, and we just finished having it built and installed and internet. So here I am. I have a place I can sit down. It is our brand new kitchen in the background back there. I was going to face the other way, but the curtains were open and you would just see sunlight and nice silhouette. So anyway, thank you guys for letting me come and talk about the Dharma for just a little bit. I thought for a while, what do I want to talk about tonight? And I thought about talking about precepts because I know we have a precept ceremony coming up this weekend, and I thought maybe I'd talk about that. But then I thought, you know what? You're going to hear so much about precepts on Saturday that the last thing you want to hear is more about that now. So I got to thinking about how sometimes in the Dharma, our intentions get misunderstood. And maybe it's misunderstood by our teacher, maybe it's misunderstood by our friends or our fellow devotees. But we do something and then, you know, people ask a question like, well, why did Minh do that? Or why did Malinta do that? Why didn't she do it this way? You ever had people ask you that? And I bet you $1 million here. Malinta has that happen to her all the time. She lives in Sri Lanka, in a very Theravadist country. And I bet people ask her all the time, why do you sit with a Zen guru? Why do you listen to these Mahayanists? And people don't really understand our intentions, and they don't really understand. I've suffered from this before myself. Mostly when I practiced with a Zen group, and I was practicing also with a Theravada monk, and people didn't understand my intentions, and honestly, I didn't understand what my intentions were either. And I was trapped in a world of dualism for quite a while in my journey towards better understanding the Buddha Dharma. But I found a sutta in the Khuddaka Nikaya that really drives this home to me. And I wanted to share it with you guys tonight because I think it tells us something that we shouldn't always be so close to jump to conclusions about what other people are experiencing or what their path is. So this is called the Kaligoda Sutta, and it's about a monk called Bhaddiya Kaligoda. And I want to, I guess, preface this by, if you're not familiar with the various baskets of discourses that are in the various traditions, and in this case the Theravadan tradition, there's the middle length discourses, there's the long discourses, there's the connected discourses, etc. And so there's a lot of these. There's the numerical discourses. Well, there's also the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is basically a collection of short sayings. This actually is a full sutta that I'm going to share with you tonight, but you'll see why later at the end the Buddha recites a poem, and so that's why this is included in there, because it's the poem itself that allowed the monks to continue to memorize these and pass these down through thousands of years of tradition. So anyway, so let me share with you most of this Kaligoda Sutta, and then I'll elaborate just a little bit. And so it goes like this. I have heard that on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying near Anupiya in the mango grove. And on that occasion, Venerable Bhaddiya, Kaligoda's son, on going into the wilderness, to the root of a tree or to an empty dwelling, would repeatedly exclaim, "What bliss! What bliss!" A large number of monks heard Venerable Bhaddiya, Kaligoda's son, on going to the wilderness, to the root of a tree or to an empty dwelling, repeatedly exclaim, "What bliss! What bliss!" And on hearing him, the thought occurred to them, there is no doubt but that Venerable Bhaddiya, Kaligoda's son, doesn't enjoy leading the holy life. For when he was a householder, he knew the bliss of kingship. So that now, on recollecting that when going to the wilderness, to the root of a tree, or to an empty dwelling, he repeatedly exclaims, "What bliss! What bliss!" And I think when I read this in English, Kaligoda is going, and he's going to meditate. And when he does this, he's saying, "What bliss, what bliss." But I think in English, kind of the translation that people are hearing is, "What bliss? What bliss?" And that's why people were confused, you see? And so even though it's just intonation of the first word or the second word or whatever, they thought he was mocking, this is not blissful. But instead, he was actually exclaiming, "What bliss, what bliss." How easily people misunderstand what we're trying to say or what we are experiencing. So these monks, they went to the Buddha, and so the sutta goes on like this. It says, so they went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As they were sitting there, they told him, Venerable Bhaddiya, Kaligoda's son, Lord, on going to the wilderness, to the root of a tree or to an empty dwelling, repeatedly exclaims, "What bliss, what bliss!" There is no doubt but that Venerable Bhaddiya doesn't enjoy leading the holy life, for when he was a householder, he knew the bliss of kingship. So that now, on recollecting that when going to the wilderness, to the root of a tree or to the empty dwelling, he repeatedly exclaims, "What bliss, what bliss!" I point this out that this seems very repetitive. And for those of you who haven't studied the Pali Canon too much, a lot of the suttas are very repetitive because it was this repetition, reciting the same concept over and over again, that made it easy for the monks to memorize. And they would memorize them this way, and it was easy for them to then pass them on through the generations. Remember, they didn't have this Prakrit language that they were using, whether it was Pali or whether it was a different Prakrit language. They didn't have it in a written form at the time. These were all passed down orally. So a lot of these suttas are very repetitive that way. And then, so it goes on that the Buddha says to these monks, "Okay, guys, go find Bhaddiya and bring him to me and tell him just like this." They say, "Hey, friend Bhaddiya, the Blessed One wants to see you. Would you come and see him?" So they all said, "Okay, Buddha, we'll go and do that." So they took off and they ran down the street, went out into the woods, and they found Venerable Bhaddiya. And they said, "Hey, friend Bhaddiya, the Blessed One wants to see you. Come on back with us and come and talk to the Blessed One." And Bhaddiya was delighted. He wanted to talk to the Buddha. He's like, "Of course, I'm happy to." So he comes back, and he, like the tradition is in all situations, especially when dealing with the Buddha, but also as one does with one's teacher, he bowed to the Buddha and then he sat down to one side. It was considered rude in the tradition to sit right directly in front of your teacher, so they always sat to one side. So Badiya sat down to one side of the Buddha, and he said like this. He says, and again, it gets a little bit repetitive, but it says, what compelling reason, the Buddha asked Badiya, he says, what compelling reason do you have in mind that when going to the wilderness, to the root of a tree, to an empty dwelling, you repeatedly exclaim, what bliss, what bliss? Badiya answered this way, before, when I was a householder, maintaining the bliss of kingship, Lord, I had guards posted within and without the royal apartments, within and without the city, and within and without the countryside. But even though I was thus guarded, thus protected, I dwelled in fear, agitated, distrustful, and afraid. But now, on going alone to the wilderness, to the root of a tree, or to an empty dwelling, I dwell without fear, unagitated, confident, and unafraid, unconcerned, unruffled, my wants satisfied, with my mind like a wild deer. This is the compelling reason I have in mind that when going to the wilderness, to the root of a tree, or to an empty dwelling, I repeatedly exclaim, what bliss, what bliss. Then, on realizing the significance of that, the Blessed One on that occasion exclaimed, from whose heart there is no provocation, and for whom becoming and non-becoming are overcome, he, beyond fear, blissful, with no grief, is the one the devas can't see. Excuse me, my alarm was going off. I really apologize. It's 6:30 in the morning. It's time I normally wake up and take my son, get my son ready for school. So anyway, it probably is telling me I've spoken long enough. I just want to touch on this real quickly because the Buddhist poem at the end tells the other monks something. It tells the other monks, dude, you guys were worried about this guy? He's fully enlightened. That's what he's telling them. He's saying, from whose heart there is no provocation, for whom becoming and non-becoming are overcome. He, beyond fear, blissful with no grief, is the one the devas can't see. I wanted to tell this because, as I said before, sometimes we have Dharma friends that just don't understand this, or maybe we have family members who just don't understand this. They think they know what we're saying, or they think they know our experience. But in reality, what they didn't realize, they were blaming this Badiya fella, saying he's not happy here, because they're thinking in his head, he was a prince. He was the son of a king. He lived in a palace and he had all these guards and all these palatial apartments. How can he be happy living as a monk in a robe and going out to the forest and sitting under a tree and saying, what bliss, what bliss? They had this preconceived idea in their mind. No way he could be happy doing this. And yet, that was the only place he was finding his true happiness, his true bliss. He was free. He was free from the bondage of that cycle of samsara, and he had found bliss. So I just wanted to share that with you today, that sometimes we read suttas and they strike us as something we didn't quite expect, you know? And that's what I like about this one, is I think we've all had people misinterpret our intentions before. They've misinterpreted what we were trying to say or what we were trying to do. But what matters is what it is to us, how Badiya was feeling. And he knew how he was feeling. And that was just his way of explaining it and exclaiming it. And so the Buddha saw through that very quickly. And I think that is a good lesson to all of us, that when we don't know the backstory, or we think we know the backstory, but don't know the whole story, maybe we shouldn't be so quick to judge. Don't be quick to judge. Be quick to accept. And when we're quick to accept, we accept the world as it is. And when we truly accept the world as it is, we see the world as it is. And that's my lesson today. And thank you for all being here.
Thank you, Reverend. And now we will return for another 15 minutes of seated meditation. Chant the Heart Sutra. Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is safe from all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness. That which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They do not appear or disappear, are not tainted or pure, do not increase or decrease. Therefore, in emptiness, no form, no feeling, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of us, and so forth, until no realm of mind consciousness, no ignorance, and also no extinction of it, and so forth, until no old age and death, and also no extinction of them, no suffering, no origination, no stopping, no path, no cognition, also no attainment, with nothing to attain. The bodhisattva depends on prajna paramita, and the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. Far apart from every perverted view, one dwells in nirvana. In the three worlds, all Buddhas depend on prajna paramita and attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great transcendent mantra, is the great bright mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra, which is able to relieve all suffering and is true, not false. So proclaim the prajna paramita mantra. Proclaim the mantra which says gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha. Gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha. Gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha. So we would like to go and make our dedications of merit. All sentient beings are one seamless body and pass quickly from birth to death. We remember those who cared for us and are gone, those who are ill, those who are at war, who are hungry, and who are in pain. May they heal and have peace. We especially dedicate our service to Barry, Maureen, Perry, Mike Gingy Wood, Dylan Jacobson, Joanne Sheridan, Rihanna Bailey Sheridan. Would anyone care to add anyone in?
Oh, I would.
Ed?
All right. Never met him in person, but he's a fellow archaeologist who's a veteran archaeologist who passed away recently. Birdman.
People of Sri Lanka.
Any others? All beings in 10 directions, subject to the greed, hatred, and delusion of themselves and others. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattva, Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Maha Prajna Paramita. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly by and opportunities to awaken are easily lost. Strive to realize your true nature. Do not squander your time by night or day. Thank you for joining us this evening.